Hello, everyone. Welcome and hope you enjoy the last two episodes that we did. My name is Gary, and today we're gonna talk about fee, which is something interesting. And welcome to this business podcast. And Gary here, and I do have Nick. How are you, Nick?
Good. Excited to be doing this third
Yes.
installment of the series.
Yeah, I think we barely get the time also. I think it's since the last episode we did with David Yo, I think it was really fun to get someone who is actually he still do something related to architecture, but not like a consultant architect, so which is or interior design, which is something very interesting. Today we're gonna talk about fee. I just wanted to address a few points before we start off this episode. So I just thought that the reason why we wish to talk about this sort of like there are different kind of like a technical issue, the reason why we don't want to go live, and also we hope that even though this episode is not on live, but we always hope that you can actually let us know what do you think, because this is very crucial to talk about fee. Fee and salary, this is very very closely related link. So Lana did this booklet talk about salary, where you should totally understand why a certain company they charge a fee, and therefore here comes to your salary. So if you are listening to this and then you are concerning about your salary, why you think that a certain firm they are actually earning like, let's say 3,000 while you are earning only 2,000, why is it so? So it's a whole cycle of economy where we need to understand how does it relate. So I mean, from my brief point of view, maybe later Nick can add on to the point, because from what I know, the reason why we are charging a fee, of course, is the income. But the rule of thumb, as I know, is always 3 times of your salary. Meaning to say, let's say a project that you are working on, let's say just one, or maybe you have 2 projects, or doesn't really matter. So the salary that you are getting, let's say 2,000 Malaysia ringgit, by right, employer is supposed to expect you can generate a value of 6,000. So the 6,000, it goes to like 2,000 for your salary, 2,000 for the office, for the maintenance, for the for the office upkeep and things like this. Another 2,000 for the office employer as a profit. So that's how the profit margin comes in. But I just curious to ask Nick, what do you think? Like, how true is this rule of thumb in a way? Is like a 1/3 or quarter? No, is it quarter? No, 1/3. Yeah, is this kind of like a basis to calculate the fee? And then how true is that for you as an employer? I mean, because now you are actually working alone, and sometimes you do hire freelance, and how do you charge the fee? At the same time, how does it relate to freelance salary? I mean, you don't have to talk about the proper figure, but it's much more like a proportion. How true is this formula?
Actually, it's the first time I'm hearing of this formula, but it kind of makes sense that the salary is, you say it's about 3 times, meaning that the employer expects 3 times the value in return, which means that he's expecting that his expenses is about 30%, which kind of makes sense. But I guess sometimes when it comes to salary, there's no direct ROI. So it's really hard to calculate what value are you going to bring to the company. For example, if you're an employee and you're in an architectural ID firm, it's really hard to calculate how much the value you bring to the company, unless, let's say, you're doing sales. So I think that's a bit more direct, a bit more objective. But in terms of value, I think it's really difficult. Then I think it based on the subjective interpretation of the employer. I guess that's why, because they don't count the ROI. So I think that's why it's very easy to undervalue your employees or your subcontractors or your freelancers.
I mean, because there seems to be there's a market benchmark as well, saying that part 1 minimum we should know that it's sort of like this kind of price range, not price range, but salary rate, things like this. Because we sort of know that if let's say you're paying part 1 for 500, It doesn't make sense because by basic living rate wage, you know that it doesn't really make sense. But it seems to be
Yeah.
there is a minimum rather than there's no maximum. It says that, you know, like big firm are able to, I mean, there are so many factors there. Perhaps the salary is also part of the attractive factor where they wanted to keep a certain employees. And then also the reason why you say that it's not really 100% accurate is because when we talk about office upkeep, where last week we were talking about cost to run a practice as well, it's different because perhaps for David doesn't really need to pay a rent. So, and perhaps compared to architecture, the software is lesser complicated, maybe, you know, things like this. So to upkeep the project maybe is lesser, and to upkeep your office is lesser, yeah, things like that.
Yeah.
So
I mean, for me, because
yeah,
it's a small firm, I do think about it as the value of the employee. It's how much he or she can free up my time,
yeah,
because in a way, because I need to do sales and business development, so my time in a way is a bit more valuable.
yeah,
So if he or she can take away more things off my plate, then I think they will be a lot more valuable in that
right.
sense.
Right. So that's much more on the salary side. But when it comes to like fee,
Yeah.
how do you know? I mean, when you started off your practice, so have you been improvising I mean, I hope it's not too sensitive to ask. In a way, have you been improvising your rate, your design rate, or your fee since this? I mean, you started off like what, 7 years ago? Yeah,
Yeah,
six.
7 8 years ago.
And
Yeah,
then now
fee. You
have
mean
you,
fee to the client, right?
yeah, and then to change it, to update, to adjust, because I suppose every year you need to do a little bit adjustment because of inflation rate, I
Yep.
think. So how do you, I
Yep.
mean, how do you adjust that? And then do you think that is
Yeah.
it following up the market price as well? And also I'm sure the customer satisfied with the fee proposal in a way, otherwise you wouldn't get the job.
Hmm. Yeah. I think it's quite interesting because for the past 8 years, I think I've tried maybe 10 to 15 different fee structure, and I've always experimented. Of course, incremental increase over the years, but also adjusting the style based on um, how effective it will be, and because there's this costing psychology that how you present the cost or the amount that you
Yeah,
present the cost to the client actually sets up an impression of how professional or how well run our company is.
yeah,
So and because I haven't been employed in Malaysia before this, so I had to learn everything afresh. So every time I
yeah,
read a book or I attend a course, then I will try to change it whichever way that's beneficial. So I think over the past 8 years, I've tried 15 different charging styles. So initially, I started with per square feet basis, and that was during when the first 2 years when I ran the company, I did it as a consultant basis,
yeah,
and then as we grew and I realized that I like to take risks. I'm a gambler. So
yeah,
then we started to go towards design and build. And then that's a
yeah.
different fee structure in the sense that I I price my fee into the construction or the renovation fee, the
Okay.
cost, as one, so that it's maybe at the end of the day the total will be the same, but it's just that the way I present it to the client as though that, oh, there's no additional fees.
But when you talk about like, because design and build, let's say the fee is sort of like derived from the contract sum, let's say 10% of certain amount, or and
Mm-hmm.
as the project goes bigger, then you charge lesser in a way. And also it depends, like let's say you work with someone that you work with numerous times, then perhaps there's a discount in a way because it's easier to work with someone
Yeah.
that you know
Yeah.
before. But just now I was quite curious because when I do have the first question is actually talking about how your fee is actually calculated based on the area, because as I know, it's like a lot of people they count by area rather than the construction cost. For example,
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember, like maybe back then it's like what, 10 ringgit per square feet for basic, maybe things like this, and then if you want to design, then 20, and then if you want a premium, then 35 or 40 or 50, things like this. So
Yeah.
is this still relevant in the climate where I'm not sure about in Malaysia, because here the construction cost could change so much, at least 1.5 times compared to 6 months ago when I was working, when I started working. There's few reasons. One is because of Brexit, and then also post-COVID and also Ukraine war and things like this, skyrocket the construction cost. But how does it work in Malaysia in a way? If let's say we calculate things based on area, will that be unfair in a way? Because we have to subject this to the construction cost where when we calculate the fee based on the area, and then how do you know that it doesn't mean that area equals to construction cost? You get.
Yep.
I hope you sort of get that kind of
Yeah,
idea, because
I think I get a gauge of what I think that's why this fee thing is quite subjective. It's just really based on how your risk appetite and how you think. I mean, it's we are running private entities, so it's of course in our best interest to be as profitable as we can. Of course, giving back the equivalent value to the owner. So initially, I think I came back. I think I charged maybe 5 to 10 ringgit per square feet. And then it went on to as high as 25 ringgit per square feet. So how I think about it is that if, let's say, I were to spend, I always try to relate it, the fee, I always try to relate it to the time spent on a particular project. So in a sense that if a project, for just for argument's sake, if the project is 1,000 square feet and the construction cost is 100,000, for example. If let's say the client has only a budget and for 1,000 square feet, 100,000, I'm gonna spend, let's say, 2 months. If the client only has a 50,000 budget for a 1,000 square feet, doesn't mean I spend one month and the project will be completed. I still need a month and a half or a month and 3 weeks, so it doesn't, I'm still wasting the same amount of time, but I'm earning less because of the client's budget.
Right.
So that's why we try to brand ourselves and market ourselves in a way that maybe we try to target a bit higher level on the client's budget, so that it also makes sense for our time. And we don't really need to serve. And I mean, we can understand, at the start, you want to get every single project. As you grow throughout the company, then you realize that you should niche down in terms of the types of client we can serve, either a certain demographic or a certain budget. And that's what we've always done, because we're a small company and we try. I don't think I have any goals to make it as big as possible. So we always try to control the amount of projects coming in. That way we can keep the quality up.
And also building out the portfolio, and then slowly getting the contract that you like with the high value, and also yet at the same time you do the project that you like, and then working with the client that you easy to work with as well. So I mean,
that's right. So that's why we charge a certain, based on, so if let's say if 1,000 square feet and we charge a certain sum, if we are able to lower the cost, the construction or renovation cost for the client, then I think we are doing a valuable thing to the client, a good job for the client, and that's why we deserve to be paid more, right? Because we've created this value where they are saving 50,000. Whereas if let's say we charge on the construction cost, let's say a percentage, that means I'm being punished for helping the client to lower their expenses.
Right.
So that's how I think about it.
I mean, that's where you start to calculate not just about the fee, but also the time spent that you need to invest in a certain project, because you don't want to spend like 2 years in just one interior. It doesn't really make sense. And then you realize that after 2 months, the following 22 months, you are zero income, which is so bad. It's so bad.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, it happens because, sometimes say it's friend, and then the fee they agree way before, let's say 2 years ago, they agree, and then doesn't really meet the inflation rate now. And then you realize that you are actually working over, but then you cannot say something that, hey, can we adjust the fee? No, it's a friend. And it's difficult. Right. But when it comes to like construction costs, how do you see? Is it fluctuating in a sense that it's fluctuate a lot, like in these 2 years? And then how does it relate to your fee? Do you think that if let's say the construction cost goes skyrocket like 2 times in the last 2 years, you wanted to change your fee at least a 1 times more higher? But it's quite hard, no?
I mean, because now we are doing design and build, so we just charge the construction fee, and we get our margin from there. So we don't charge a separate fee, only a certain deposit before they start engaging us.
Right.
I think for the past I would say 4 to 5 months is when the construction cost in Malaysia has really skyrocketed. So that obviously has to be reflected in our costing to the client.
Right.
Yeah,
So
and
so
because we
I'm
charge a percentage, like profit margin. So of course, when the construction cost goes up, then our margin, while the percentage stays, but then the absolute amount goes up as well.
So you mean that, I mean, that's interesting because when it comes to like design and build, that's different strategy for fee because
Yes.
you are charging from handling and labor costs mostly,
Yeah.
right? I assume because material you can't play a lot because it's like, let's say a bag of cement 20 ringgit is 20 ringgit, you can't charge like 25, in fact
Yeah.
you can get cheaper because you are a contractor.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's where the slowly a bits by bits of the earning profit margin and then plus the fee. So are you saying that the fee is actually comes from a lot of here and there kind of pieces because it's a design and build as a whole thing? But then when
Correct. So we try not to look at it as two separate entities.
right.
So the time that we spend on the design, we will earn back during the construction or the renovation.
I see. So what are the chances that, let's say, you are now have this fee and then what are the chances you need to lower down the fee? Is it because of personal relationship or let's say inexperience? Let's say, like, as I know, I mean, I met a few situations where when I design something and then I realize I messed up a certain details or things like this, and then I need to give a discount. So that's also another profit decrease in a way. And then there are other things that make the fee lower, let's say, or desperate for job, things like this. There are chances that you want to reduce the fee.
For sure.
Yeah.
And that's why I know a lot of designers still don't want to do design and build because the risk is very high. So that's why it's not for everyone. They want to limit their liabilities and their risks by doing consultation. But somehow I like the thrill, or I like to earn more. So that's why I want to be part of the construction. And I feel that being because now I'm doing design and build, so in a way people see me as a contractor as well. And I feel that being a contractor has really informed my design decisions because I need to figure out how to build it. Whereas I feel that the typical design consultant mindset, we sort of designers sort of put themselves up in the pedestal, like above contractor. So they want to draw something and they pass on to the contractor and say, hey, just get this built within the cost. I don't care how you do it. Whereas if I'm the contractor, I'm the one that needs to figure out those things. So I think that's a bit of the difference. In terms of messing up, we try not to bring in the word discount. So if let's say we mess up, then we will just spend more money. Yes, so that lowers our margin. We'll spend more money to get the thing sorted out. So on the client's end, there's not much changes. But on our end, of course, we earn less, but that's because it's our own mistake and we should own up to it and we have to pay for our own mistakes.
How about like with contingency, like when you include into the construction cost, of course, the fee is within there. Usually for those people who actually just thought that, okay, I just want to calculate to an accurate figure. But what about the contingency, like, mess up the material? What about handling costs, delivery, logistic, if you order a piece of marble and then crack, things like this. What are the contingency? As I know, it's like 10%. And in Malaysia, will it be different?
For me,
or even or depends on the scale and also how you run a practice. Perhaps the contingency is lower because you might be the contractor and then you are much more confident and say, hey, dear client, I'm sure that I can handle this better because I'm also the client. I'm the contractor and also designer. Maybe the contingency lower in a sense.
Yeah, that's right. I think again, different practices run it differently. That's why usually the first few items in a contract is preliminary works. So and that's very subjective, and this is when they have the highest profit margin. This is what I've been told. For me, because we've been doing this way and I know the prices of a lot of the items. So because I'm running my own practice, I'm the QS as well. So in a way, a lot of the prices are priced quite accurately. So I try to reduce my contingency. Then it's actually quite low, maybe 5%.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm quite confident in my pricing and I know how to build and how to price it, and that's why a bit less risk for me.
Yeah, and also minimizing the risk and minimizing the mistake, and all this is based on the experience that you had before.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, again, I mean that contingency is sort of like let the clients know that okay, this is the 5% to sort of like a bonus. I mean, if everything goes well, this 5% is go back to you, kind of thing, or that's kind of like a bonus or setback. If let's say anything happen, we can only touch it. Otherwise, we can actually talk about it. How can we spend the money? Perhaps we can invest the money for more your decoration or things like this. And also,
Yeah.
choose a better lights or choose a better table or things like this. I mean, just now you mentioned about I'm sorry, I'm jumping here and there. It's really interesting that when we talk about fees, like it's all related. And also, when you talk about how how fee is calculated, but at the same time, it's also how to collect the fee from the client, which is at some point can be quite personal and quite emotional. Um,
Mm-hmm.
how before that you mentioned about different kind of fee strategies and fee proposal. I'm sure that also includes the fact that how do you wanted to calculate and also collect the fee in, because I mean, traditionally, as I know, surely it's much more fair in that sense, where saying, okay, after I done the design development, you pay this X amount. After I done this presentation, this meeting, I will set charge half of the stage. Things like this. So that one is by stage. But also because I think there's also another very interesting but yet very dangerous, because you need to promise your deliverables, is that it's actually count by monthly. In a way, I will keep on doing it, but I just wanted you to make sure that every month you pay me 2,000 ringgit up until certain time, which I'm not sure is it something common, or is what's your opinion in this kind of calculation, and also much more regular to get the fee, saying that okay, so the client knows
Okay.
that, oh, okay, I need to pay my architect every month for 2,000, and then keep spending until a certain limit, which I think it's quite subjective also, because what if things fucked up and then you not just need to pay 2,000, sometimes you need to pay 2,000 and above.
Yeah. I mean, for monthly, it's a bit odd because it's almost like a retainer service, and I'm not sure if it's fair to the client to collect
That's quite
monthly
true.
if things are not delivered, just because it's convenient. So that's why we've changed the fee structures, over the years. It's because I always try to balance what is fair to the client and versus what works for us. So I think it has to be a good balance. So sometimes I've tried structure where it's very favorable to the client, but I'll get stuck on the cash flow. And then there are certain fee structure that I feel that it's very easy for me to collect, but it creates a lot of tension on the client side, in a sense
Yeah.
that we can't really verify why we are collecting this much.
Yes.
So then
Yes.
I always try to adjust and give them because at the end, okay, we are delivering a fully fitted house with a lot of deliverables like cabinets and lighting, but at the end we are providing a service. So I always try to create a certain comfort in mind, because they're hiring somebody to get rid of their problems so that they can sleep well at night. And so
Yeah.
I try whatever ways that make them have less headache as much as possible. So that's how
Yeah.
I go about most of the things.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
That's where customer service comes into mind, I guess.
yeah, it's much more like a business development and also marketing side, and getting a new project and also keeping the existing project in a way.
Yeah,
Well, I mean,
that's
the
right.
reason why I mentioned about this monthly thing is interesting, because I mean, it's not as ideal as I thought, because you'll be happy because you can see like, oh, okay, that's nice. At least let's say you have 10 projects, at least 2 projects, that every month, at least maximum, minimum, I can at least get 4,000 in the pocket every month. You feel safe. It feels like at least you don't feel like worry about, oh, next month who should I invoice and things like this, because you don't need to think about that, because you sort of know that, okay, it's like it's like working as an employee. You know that every month I should get salary at this X amount, and then you start to able to plan out your rent, your your expenses and things like this. But there is actually possibility to do that unless we count the fee by time base. So because as I also okay, fundamentally, as I know, fee could be calculated in 3 ways. One is by construction cost, and then you take a percentage, which like Nick mentioned just now, like certain budget, then you have certain percentage. as the construction construction cost goes up, and then the fee percentage goes down. But because I mean that's kind of common sense in a way. You can't charge like 10% of 100 million project. 1 million is 10% or things like this. So that's why by construction cost and percentage. Second is actually usually by lump sum. I'm not sure how many people still do lump sum. Lump sum is quite a dangerous move in a way because given the fact that you know that what you're gonna need to do from the beginning to the end of the project, you know that you throw a certain number and then you're confident that nothing will happen, and then you can get the money that you're happy. Lump sum is usually, I think it works for a personal relationship or friends or relative. The third one, as I know, which I always quite like is, and it's quite fair from our side, is by time base. For example, there is a timesheet recorded and say, hey, on Monday I meet you, and then this meeting cost me 1 hour for 90 pounds or things like this. It's like a doctor consultancy, consultancy. But I realized in Malaysia interior and also architecture, most of them are actually based on the construction cost. You take a certain percentage and also by area. While time-based or lump sum is not really a good strategy. What's your point of view on different kind of strategies and and also the feasibility of each fee strategy for your company?
Yeah, I think that, again, it depends on your own style. I mean, I quite like lump sum because it's a very worry-free environment for the clients. So that's why I would say, yes, you can call it dangerous, but it's just a risky. So if you take the risk,
Sure.
then if you can do it well, then you have the right to earn more. So it really depends on risk appetite, which I feel a lot of designers in general, they just don't want to take the risk. So that's why they always price it in a way that, oh, it's safe for them, like the monthly thing.
Yeah.
In terms of time-based, I think it's more prevalent in the US. I'm not sure about the UK.
Yeah.
But yeah, time-based, it's not really, as I know, it's not really popular in Malaysia for now. And I also don't really like how it works time-based, because okay, you're paying, and I'm not talking about the ethics part where you fill in according to the work that you put in, because you have a deliverable and you're paid based on time, meaning if you can do it very quickly, you'll be paid less. So
That's
if you
quite
can
true.
deliver a project quicker, is that more value to the clients or is it less value? It's more value, but you're getting paid less. So in a way, you're being punished for you being efficient and good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when it comes to time-based, there's another interesting factor is that if you can do fast, for example, you are super experienced, you've been working for 30 years, and certain projects or certain idea, you can instantly think about it, think about all the ideas in an hour, but you can't charge an hour of 90 pounds perhaps. Now you need to charge yourself perhaps 120 or 130 because you are experienced or you are director. So therefore, even though I super less time, but I'm expensive kind of thing. Well, compared to the assistant architect, in order to come out with different kind of mock-ups, they need to spend like, let's say, whole day. But their cost is like what, 30 pounds, 20 pounds, or like 40 pounds, some. Okay, like then there are different kind of price range and agreed with the client. I think in the end, it's really that kind of agreement between the client and the employer to, I mean, there are so many ways. I mean, at least here got 3 ways to calculate, and then it depends on the client. Say, okay, I think time-based kind of fair because I think time-based is helpful, especially when it comes to the projects where client wanted to do some design as well. In a way, they say that, hey, architect, stop doing that. I will do it. So I don't have to pay you so much. Things like this. Because there are certain projects that I just want to get planning application, for example. They don't need design because they wanted to do their own design. They wanted to find their own reference and say, hey, I saw this Pinterest and I like it. Can you actually just help me to get supplier for this? And that's it. I don't want you to do mood board or things like this. I will do it by myself. And it happens because sometimes it's friend and then it's hard to say no. And then we just thought that, okay, I can help you to submit the planning application or authority. But design wise, I will do it. And how frequent for you is that for you in your situation? I mean, but in the end, you also design a bit because you are the contractor as well. So it's quite rare, this kind of situation for you. unless it's
Yeah,
design,
I
right?
think because I don't have this time thing, so I've always loved lump sum, maybe because previously my employers in Singapore, they've always charged a lump sum based on a certain criteria, like housing type. Like the time we did a lot of residential, so based on certain
Mm,
housing types. And it's quite interesting looking at the fee, because for example, my first employer, they, for a semi-D house, I think they charge about 80,000 Sing dollars for the whole
wow,
project as a consultant.
wow.
But my second employer, for the same project, they charge about 185
In the same year or in the same
in
year?
the same in the same year, maybe 1 or 2 years apart. So it's really about maybe the profile or the branding of the company, the confidence
Right,
to tell your client this is how much I'm worth. And
right.
that's why it opened my eyes up to this fee thing, like how different people charge. And obviously money in general is still a taboo thing that we haven't had enough discussion
Yes.
on it in general.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's quite true, because the reason why we actually wish to talk about this, and also totally welcome you to comment or let us know what do you think, because um I think the priority of the whole conversation is actually the architects don't talk about fee, which I totally understand, because it's actually a competitiveness of the whole point, because you don't want to sort of like expose your secret. But I mean, for me, if there's a chance that I'm the boss, I don't mind to talk about it. But there's a danger for me to say that, because if let's say I say something lower than the typical market price, and then I will sort of spoil the market in a way. Because if I say, hey, Mr. Garrio's fee is actually only 20 ringgit per hour, or 20, or let's say 1 ringgit per square feet, or super cheap, and then everyone just thought that, hey, I heard that from Gary say that it's only 1 ringgit, why you charge 5 ringgit, or things like this. Then they start to argue and say, oh, I don't want to hire you because I can hire someone cheap, I don't mind. Or as long as I can do my design, and then why should I hire you compared to Gary, even though Gary is just 1 year experience, compared to Nick is like 7, or at least a 20 years experience. Things like this
Yeah.
is I understand why there is a certain argument say that why the fee don't want to be shared, but there is a
Mhm.
minimum which I thought it should be a minimum, but I'm not
Yeah.
sure how many
Mm.
how many people actually follow that.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, I feel I always try to be very open to things like that. So if I was in that situation, let's say, I wouldn't know that I'm undervaluing myself until I put it out there, and then there's a news that say that, hey Nick, we come to you because you're super cheap.
Mm,
We heard from the podcast, and if I don't put it out there, I would never know. Then I would think that, oh, I'm so expensive, but actually I'm very cheap. So I always be very open. Like for my company, every single project, in terms of the tabulation of the profit, is open to all the employees.
yeah,
They can see how much we earn and how much we spend for everything. Like usually, we are quite an open book. Yeah, so
sure.
I share how much we earn from all the projects, how much is our office expenses. So these things are very open. I know people are very secretive about these things, but
Yeah.
I feel that it's very beneficial when it's an open book. And I feel that and ever since I've started that practice, I think maybe after 4 to 5 years, where I opened it up to all the employees, and they are more understanding whenever I I give a certain instruction, hey, let's do faster, or let's find someone cheaper. Because
Yeah.
if I don't open it out, when I say that, hey, let's find a cheaper supplier, they would think that, hey, this Nick is super cheapo, only want to
Yeah.
find the
Yeah.
Long Tang stuff.
Yeah.
But when they see the tabulation, they understand, hey, we are we are underpricing this thing. We need to save on a bit here and there. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's for me, but I can understand why some people think of it as very secretive or private, just like how you don't really share on your salary, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, for me, it's a bit different. I don't mind to share that, because I sort of know. I mean, even though okay, there are two scenarios, right? I mean, for a fee to be low or salary, fee or salary, let's say low or high, I don't mind to share it, because I wanted to know that if I'm really, earning a lower salary, I wanted to tell everyone that, hey, I'm doing so many. What happened to me? Can you actually give me advice? How do I boost up my salary? Or
Yeah.
really think about my ability. Am I really deserve that kind of amount of money? It's a bit like an existential crisis. But and then another side is, if let's say I'm really earning a high salary, then I would tell my friend, hey, I'm earning this amount of money. I know that in my, if I, let's say I talk to someone about the same age, and then, well, I'm not earning a lot now, but I just saying that if, let's say, I earn more than them, then I would say that, okay, well, I earn a lot more money because I have been doing so many things and I have been contributing so many to the company. Plus, the company is, doing a lot of rich projects. So I don't think so. I don't think I should deserve a lower salary and things like that. It becomes like a discussion rather than anxiety, where a lot of time,
Yeah.
in Malaysia is very stressful. We're saying that, hey, I'm earning 2,000. Yeah, 2,000 so low. I'm earning like 4,000 in an X company. And then people tend to compare and say, hey, we are doing the same amount of time and work. Why you are earning like 2 times salary?
Yeah.
Which is,
I think it's hard to compare. I think there's a saying that comparison is the base of unhappiness. When they compare, they tend to
yeah.
be unhappy. And the salary thing is very subjective, because maybe you were really happy with your salary until you found out what's your friend's
Oh, that's
salary.
quite true.
So
Yeah.
I think that's not really fair. You don't question, but it's quite an interesting episode that I had this week. That I had an intern work for me last year, and then she went back to school, and then now she's fresh grad, and initially she was working part-time. Now, so that we're going to convert her to full-time, but then
Yeah.
she also went for an interview with another company, which is IKEA.
Oh, interesting.
and
Wow.
and we had a very open conversation, and IKEA was offering her, I would say, 80% more than what I was offering. And so, and for me, my offer is just like a typical fresh grad ID
Yeah.
person. But we worked before, and I really like her because she can contribute to the company. And I had to take a few days to ask myself, should I hire someone based on what I was willing to pay,
Yeah.
or should I up
Your
her
offer.
salary,
Yeah.
my offer? That's right. And I end up matching the salary, because I had to really question, because I understand things are getting expensive now. The value of ringgit is really low.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if she never got the offer from IKEA, she might have just perfectly been happy with the salary that I was offering. So
Right.
it's quite interesting. But then I think it was a good exercise for me to try to question the value that she will bring to the company. And at the end, even though it's going to be subjective, I felt that it was worth it, and that's why I made the plunge. So her new salary is probably twice of what she was initially asking.
I mean, but it's quite tricky, because it's really like, that there is a certain benchmark or limitation that you can offer, and then now, because of other factor, and then it's quite compare. It's like, what, IKEA is a super huge company. I mean, it's very hard
Yeah. So
to.
then, this what I'm going to tell you now is exactly the same thing that I told her. So I said that I find that she can provide value to the company, and now that because of her salary is higher and the company expenses is higher, so it's my responsibility as the leader of this business venture
Yeah.
to go and find ways to make more sales or increase our profit.
Yeah.
That's not her problem. That's her
Sure.
problem
Sure.
is manage to get me to go up. So then that's what I said, okay, we have higher expense now, then we have to find a way through business development or anything to up our profit, to make up for that. Because it's high expenses for the company, but at the end, if I'm an employee in Malaysia, then I think the salary makes sense. And it's not a lot, because things are very expensive here in KL.
Yeah. I mean, okay, now there's an interesting thought that I have now. So if, let's say, we sort of benchmark the salary of an employee by qualification, for example. So let's say, or even working experience. So let's say you have 3 years or 5 years, then sort of know that, okay, that's why they have like an annual year review. Like, okay, you have been working here for a year, let's do an increment. Or there's a saying that, okay, you part one, you work with us, I like you, come and work with us after you done your part two, and then there goes another increment. And then after you done your part three, you are now qualified architect, things like this, and then another increment. But that's the career progression and also development for the employee. But what about employer that you can actually know that you need to raise up your fee when you talk to a client, and there might be certain client, even though they're close friend, and then what would you say to them when you raise up the fee? I mean, for me, perhaps then I would say because of inflation rate, I can't do anything much. And also there is a thing that I would say is because now, let's say I'm more confident with sustainability, I'm more comfortable with handling material, I'm more I do have a lot of contact where I can save your construction costs, or or things like this. And what's your opinion like in terms of our competitiveness, and also bring your fee higher as an employer when you propose to the
I
client?
think there's two parts to this. So the first part, when you say, okay, the salary is based on qualification or experience,
Yeah.
I think that's totally subjective, right? There's no hard and fast rule to say that if you have 2 years experience, you should earn this much. It's all subjective. Is how much you can bring, the value that you can bring to the company. I think that's maybe one part that's missing in terms of the employee talk, because they're always saying, oh, things are expensive. We should get more pay, or fresh grad pay should be higher. Okay, it makes sense, but you're not really thinking about it from the employer's point of view. Like, what are you bringing more to the company that justify the higher? It's all about money. Is just a medium. It's like, if you can bring in a certain amount of value to the company, then I'm sure they have no problem paying you. And if they still don't want to pay you based on your value, I'm sure there are other people who's ready to hire. So while they talk about the salary that they should receive, I think maybe another talk is like, what value can you bring to the company that is different from 50,000 other design or architecture graduates. You are only working for, sometimes you're a fresh grad, you have the same qualification as 200 of your other classmates. Are you better than them in a certain way? So that's one perspective maybe that we should start to talk about. And the second part of the question is to raise the fee. I don't know. I don't find that the need to justify the raise. Okay, if you are doing B2C, meaning you're serving a lot of corporate and returning clients, okay, that's one issue. Like for us, maybe we do a lot of residential, so we don't have a lot of repeat clients. So we try to raise our rates maybe every single project or every single year, because every single project that we accomplished or we complete, there's more experience. So that means the value of that experience is going to give back to the client anyway.
Right.
So I haven't had this conversation with any clients that they're asking us why our rates is that way, but I don't really feel the need to justify.
So far, there's there's no conversation so
if you
far.
Go out to buy a car, you think Honda will justify why they are charging you a certain profit margin, or Louis Vuitton or Mercedes-Benz? They put up the price in the window, and you decide whether the money that you're paying is of the value that you're getting in return. So that's the same thing. Sometimes I will get the general question like, why so expensive? Things like that. But I have a feeling that it's more towards a sales talk, which I don't mind talking about it. Or why so expensive? Why are you more expensive than
X company?
A, B, and C. So it's quite a standard.
I see. But I mean, even without facing the clients, I always thought that, is there any certain benchmark saying that, okay, after I cross this benchmark means I want to increase my fee, or from time to time I say, okay, let's say there is a interior residential project, and you found that the brief is very similar to the project that you did like maybe 2 years ago or 1 year ago, and then the fee, the reason why you automatically make some little tweak before you approach the client, that's much more. You don't inform. It's more like I don't have to tell you why I wanted to raise out my fee, because I just thought that, okay, I'm more confident with this project. That's the fee. If you don't agree, then can we talk about it? Or if you're not happy, then sorry, you can go for another architect. Things like this. Yeah.
I mean, because we're doing design, so we don't really need to think about that. But if I was charging a fee, I don't really find the need to justify it, because okay, they could compare with their friends who did with me 2 years ago. But I guess you can always find excuses. I think internal justification is one thing, and external justification, how you justify it to the client, that's another thing. I mean, I can't be telling my client that I'm raising my fee because, oh, I got 2 more members in my team. I just rented a new office. It's like,
yeah.
you think they care about your expenses? They
Those
don't
they
care.
don't care. Yeah. Those are
Yeah,
not the
they
thing.
care about what they're receiving in return.
Yeah. It's more like, and also say it's more like, hey, if you hire me, then I can help you save water, save energy. Those are my expertise. Then maybe there's something interesting for them.
Yeah, perhaps.
Or saying that I have contractor and supply contact, I can easily help you save 15% of the material. Things like this. Then they're like,
Yes,
oh,
correct.
okay, that would be interesting. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
perfect.
it's interesting that you point out talking about like so there's this book called I had a read a few days ago, and it's very interesting. When you actually offer your service, you need to talk about what they need rather than what you need, because you tell them about like how many office, how many hundred, or my employee called Amy and Belinda or things like this. They don't care until, let's say, they are the project architect, then that's different story. But they really don't care how much you rent your office, and then as you tell them, hey, I want to charge this amount because I did my expenses. This is how I come out with the fee. They don't care.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a very interesting topic today, and we are talking about a lot of things about like money primarily, in a very monetary term. But also in the end, I wish to deliver. I think we both sort of agree that the fee is actually value. It's not just about money, how much you spend, because it's not just about in return, the value is also like, we hope that work with the client and able to give them the sense of ownership and also the sense of home, because that's where the money cannot justify. You happy with the outcome, and then you like the sunshine shines on the skylight that you designed together, the door, every single pieces. And a few days ago, I do have this very interesting thought, like why okay, so well technically it was just yesterday, and so someone working in Zaha, this architects, and really comes out to an idea where if, let's say, design an office, I'm sure in China, they can actually easily come out with a glass tower. And compared to the Zaha design, why people wanted to hire Zaha? I mean, this is sort of like related to the fee, where you come to a certain point where your establishment, your reputation, and also the year of experience, and sort of what makes people think that why, as first point, wanted to hire an architect or interior designer. And after you have this thought, you wanted to go for the established or someone that you well known or with a certain portfolio that you like. I mean, that's sort of like shaping the whole market image and also perception of an interior designer. I mean, so when it comes to that, what are the chances that people actually need your, I mean, in Malaysia, maybe different. In fact, in UK also, there are chances where people don't want to hire an architect because they realize they don't need the architect unless planning, or else like rich people, then they say, okay, I need an architect. I need someone design, someone nice. I want to save my time. Mainly is they want to save their time in the project. But what about in Malaysia? What are the chances and also the group of people who is able to afford hire an interior designer? What I mean, do you see the population or ratio in Malaysia market? Like, is it like we are talking about the potential of 50% and above, or the people who actually willing to spend the money and also who spend to get like expensive designer?
I think we have to. I think different type of projects has different need for designers or architect. For us, I think ever since the pandemic, a lot of people we are doing residential mostly, so a lot of people are more willing to spend on a nicer home. I think there's even within residential projects, there's so many different type of clients that have different needs. Some hire for the best design that they can find. Some to help to facilitate certain things. Maybe they have a certain idea or they have already an existing furniture that they want to work with. For us, our client, okay, I mean, so that's why I think a lot of designers, they prioritize or they are proud of their design, but actually design only makes maybe 10-15% of the project, or that's at least the client that approaches. I would like to think that the client approaches because they want the one that's very stress-free environment or process to get their homes done. And so that's why we concentrate the focus on the design as much as the customer service. And then that's for the ID and for the, I don't know, for architecture. Okay, firstly, just to declare that I'm not in the architecture scene. So whatever that I say, you have to take it with a big pinch of salt. So it's very biased. You can say that
Yeah.
I don't know anything, I don't know what I'm talking about, or another way is I'm able to see it from a macro point of view from talking to peers, my classmates who are still in this industry, is that I feel that a lot of, let's say, developers, which are, I would think that apart from those big dato bungalows, I would think those people that can pay the most are developers because they're doing their business. I feel that for architect, and that's one of the reasons why I didn't pursue part 3 in Malaysia. I feel that it has become a commodity. I think they hire architects, for me, in my opinion, I feel that they hire architects because they have to rather than because they want to.
Right.
And I feel that the value of architects in Malaysia is slowly decreasing. Otherwise, I don't know how to justify why developers are slowly hiring in-house architects. Sometimes the brief, I've spoken to some architects who's working for firms, that sometimes when the developer approaches them, they already have the full brief. Sometimes they even have the layout. And they have 1 month to complete the construction or tender drawings, and then the developer side has 1 month to check it. So if this is not the sign of the value of architect are decreasing, I don't know what is. I don't know why. And I feel that if we are talking about the architectural minimum scale of fees, I feel that it's just a tool for architects to hide behind, so that they don't need to work. So that they don't need to work on their business scale. I know it might be very polarizing, my opinion. I feel that it's just that, I don't want to work hard on my business side. But you have to pay me as much because that's the law. Which I don't think it's fair for the clients. And you have to think about it from your perspective. Is there anything in your life that instead of you paying because you feel you are receiving the value, versus you're paying because the law or the association enforces you to, so I think that's the two different thing. If so, sometimes also I get clients that reject us because of our prices. Then instead of blaming the client being cheaper, I will have to look at ourselves and see that maybe we've done a bad job in demonstrating our value. So they thought that we are the same as anybody else, that they can get cheaper. So I think that's why I feel that the scale of fees, and because we are ID, so we don't really have a scale of fees, so anybody can undercut anybody. But then, so I feel that the scale of fees is just a tool to hide behind, that you don't have to work on your business game. That's what I feel.
Well, I think that's much more like an advice rather than a law or regulative enforcement. I'm sure the client won't go to the a lembaga or PEM say, hey, this architect charged me below the minimum scale fee, I want to sue him. Things like this. I don't think this happened before. It must be so funny if, let's say, it happens. But I mean undercut is therefore I think that's why a lot of architects, they don't want to share about their fee, because undercutting is actually part of the thing. And it's very subjective, because the client might know what is the outcome until they actually work together. Because you can say, hey, I'm very good with handling concrete, I am very good with handling glass or timber or things like this, and I have I've been very experienced, and I'm the perhaps like, this kind of related to the USP is like a unique selling point to a certain company, and therefore they come to and say, hey, I can do certain things, and I can make sure that, or things like, I'm gonna sure this is gonna be award winning, or things like this. It could be part of the brief and say, hey, I want the house to be award winning, and things like this. So this is much more like a criteria, seeing from the customer what are the values they will get, in the end of the whole process. I also, this is not really a question, but there is an observation as well. Like, whenever, let's say I'm a client, I hire an architect, I get to enjoy the whole process of designing and get the things that I like and I want. Well, not all the time. Perhaps, sometimes architects, they do argue and that dispute with the client as well. And it's very interesting that we are actually buying, what we are paying is actually, we are buying a kind of service and also product. Because if, let's say, we are paying the construction cost, right, I'm actually buying the tiles, and I'm buying the cement, the grout, the grouting. I'm actually paying for the paint. It's like buying a car. But at the same time, we are actually buying someone's service as well. It's like service to put the tiles and the paint together. So it's a very fascinating experience, I would say. It's like buying, it's like you like to collect postcards, and then now you are paying a super expensive postcard kind of idea. It's very interesting to think about that, because if let's say one day I'm really rich, I would love to hire someone rather than I want to design for my own, because you won't go through this kind of communication. It's rather happens in your head, but you don't really talk to, hey Nick, I quite like this furniture from Kobuzi. Can you help me to think about this? And things like this. This kind of conversation won't happen if let's say you design for your own home, I think. Yeah, but I mean, maybe this could be a interesting question to close up our conversation. Would you actually design your own home, or would you prefer to hire someone to stimulate the whole economy of your designers?
Actually, I'm doing that right now. Yeah, I just bought a new place, so we are in the
Nice.
process of designing. Yeah.
You do design for your own, or you hire someone?
For the designing, we'll probably do it on our own. But for obviously the construction part, then we'll just get our contractors to do it. Yeah, but we will probably get like a project manager, because I don't have time to, even though it's my own house, I don't have time to, monitor it and go there every day and every couple of hours. So I also value my time. So I will hire someone to do it, just to ease my burden, but not to stimulate the economy.
Yeah. But I think that's where the part where client needs to know, right? Because the reason why you need to hire someone, because you want to save your time, right? For those people who wanted to upgrade their house, they have to know that the whole process is quite tedious. The whole process of choosing tiles, design, the whole drawings, preparation, and all this, they must understand. Otherwise, they might don't know what they are paying for, right?
Yeah, because the thing is, like, you must know that, like construction, like you mentioned, the construction cost, the materials are all most likely the same. So the only differentiator between one company to the other is the labor cost, right? Is your margin, which is for the labor cost. So I think that's the interesting part when you say that it's about buying products and services. And also then it's depend on whether your clients value time or not, because some people don't value their time. They value their money, meaning, for example, they will drive 1 hour to a tile shop just to save $5.
Yeah.
So for them, their money is more important than the time. So for us, our target, when we do marketing and branding, it's about clients who have more money than time, meaning, they could do this, but they just don't have the time to. And as we know in the world, when you want to get something done, it's either you spend your time or you spend your money.
Yeah.
Then you have to judge. But sometimes I think the conflict comes when there's two, like a designer value their time a lot more expensive than their clients. I think that's where the friction is. Then the client will say, why are you expensive? Why do you, I can do it myself. If I can do it myself for half the price, yeah, then it's okay. Then I think designers should learn how to value their own time. And not every client or every lead that comes in is a good lead. So they need to. I understand that there's a need to survive. We need the money. But this is when I guess different advisors for different people, like the starting stage, you have different consideration versus the middle part of your business.
Yeah. Just now what I mentioned about, sorry, that one more question actually about the fee, because just now what we were talking about, just solely talking about the consultancy fee, where how to upgrade that is actually based on, let's say, USP or the complication of the project, the material, things like this. This is just talking about architecture or interior. But there comes a point where there is also another fee where you can add on to this kind of service, where how about extend to landscape, or to light design, or sustainability, or talk about thermal comfort. And those are the things that, or even like services like water or electrical, plumbing, and all this. It might be relevant for you as a design and build company, but when it comes to like landscape, it seems to be there's a sub offer, and also it could be including like I don't know, there are other things that, like, wanted to make sure that it's award winning, then top up another money on that. But how about like types of service, not just types of service, it's much more like quantity of service in a way, like to plug in like landscape design, for example. That's gonna be different. Or what do you think? Like, how does it work? Let's say someone say landscape design, will that be considered as the whole as usual, or sometimes you need to like special design or additional design service?
I think it can be both. For us, we do design and build, so whatever money the client spend on the construction part, we will earn back in terms of margin. Whereas if it's the consultant part, yeah, I'm sure if there are value, if the client requires such a thing, because sometimes they just require something simple. So it really depends. If they require something a bit more extravagant, then I'm sure whoever that's doing the consultancy, I'm sure they can add on to their service, whether it's lighting design or landscape or exploring other sustainable design.
Yeah, I mean
it could be like an add-on.
Yeah, those are the add-ons, but also, I mean, those are the add-ons for the client. But what about add-on for the company, like passive income? That's another different story. I mean, talking about like for employer to run a practice, you can have like what's it called, passive income. For example, like running a like podcast, YouTube, or things like this. Of course, this podcast we are not earning any money. Yeah. Anyway, I don't get any pence. But I mean, that comes to another definition of fee where we don't. How about we get the money from somewhere else rather than from the client? It's much more like thinking about product design, for example, for a company. I mean, would you be interested to look into other ways of earning fee in a way?
Yeah,
and then what would
be?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've always tried to do that because a company providing service, service-based product is not really scalable. Meaning because we have only 24 hours in a day. Okay, you want to earn more, you can work more, but there's only maximum amount you can work in a day. So we always find ways to productize what our expertise. It could be in a form of books. It could be in a form of template design. There's someone that I follow on YouTube. His name is Eric Reinhold. I want to say his company is called 30 by 40.
Okay, right.
30. So I follow him, and I think he's solely relying on YouTube and selling templates online. And I think he only has like one project every 2 years. So I think that's a very good passive income. And he lives in this area in the US called Maine. So it's just very cheap and very low maintenance. And we've always tried to do that. We've tried to dabble in furniture design. And I'm also trying to up my social media game so that hopefully in one day, maybe many years down the line, it could be a passive income avenue. In terms of furniture design, yeah, we try to explore that, but at the moment it still requires a lot of manpower. And from my business experience, that if you leave it to be a passive design, passive business, you need at least someone to be in it actively and constantly drive it. Otherwise, nothing will happen, because everybody also likes to sit around, do nothing, and earn money. But somebody has to be the lead of the venture. And as long as we are the lead of the venture, it's hard to take our eyes away from the ongoing project. So we're still trying to balance that.
And it takes time actually to build up in a way like a new business. You can design the furniture tomorrow, but then not everyone knows that you design and you wish to make a business about it. So that's a different agenda. Yeah. Thanks a lot, Nick. I mean, today has been so very fruitful discussion about fee, and we actually talking about the whole economy of running a practice technically, not just about fee. Of course. I mean, of course, the last week we talked about office maintenance and also the expenses and also the cost to run a practice. And today is much more like a plus point. Last week is much more like a minus, how to spend your money. Today is about how to earn your money kind of thing. Of course, the following 2 episodes, we're gonna talk more about we do have another one called about social media. So check out for that. We're gonna talk to someone special to understand what is it really we need to in legal term, like or even in a business entity to run a practice. In a way, what do you need to know to run a practice? And also the last part to close it out. I mean, we are still keep it secret first. To talk about the social media and also marketing. That's where the last part. I think it's very interesting that these 5 episodes will be intertwined to each other. So we hope that you can enjoy. And well, of course, definitely hope you enjoy this episode. Before we close this off, Nick, would you like to say anything to recap or anything to summarize?
Not really. I hope that this episode will be a good starting point for people to be a bit more open on money and things like that. Because as much as a taboo it is, it's very important for us to survive in in this field. And my mindset has always to be not to rely on other people to determine or affect your future. You have to put it in your own hands. So as much as we can complain that our clients are not willing to pay, the industry is like that, the typical stuff, we have to look within ourselves and find ways to increase our value to our clients, or find ways to deliver that value. So we should be a bit more introspective, especially things that affects our livelihood.
Yeah, cool. Thanks a lot. Thank you so much, Nick, and really happy to talk to you again, and hope to see you maybe next week. Is next week?
Yeah, hopefully I'll see you guys all in episode 4.
Episode 4, yes. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. Thank you so much, Nick. Have a good day.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.